welcome to our first edition of Unpacking Software from Chocolatey Software. On the third Thursday of each month at 5 p.m. UTC, we'll be live chatting about the latest news and opinion on packaging, software deployment, and lifecycle management. And that's what we're going to do here today. We have another live stream on the first Thursday of each month called Product Spotlight. That is where we spotlight Chocolatey products, talk about releases, highlight the latest and greatest features, and walk through tutorials and demos with you all. If you want to be notified of upcoming Chocolatey content, join our community hub on Discord, subscribe to us on YouTube, or follow us on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Bluesky, and Twitch. We're on all the social medias. You can find all of those links on our homepage, chocolatey.org. You scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll find the links there. But you can also find it on our profile page of wherever you found this content. We want to make sure as well that we hear from you about the content that we are producing. Are we doing the right kind of content? Are we producing things that you want to see? Do you have ideas about what you'd like to see that we're not doing? So have your say on our survey at ch0.co/survey. That's ch0.co/survey. My name is Paul Broadwith, and I'm the Technical Engineering Manager here at Chocolatey Software. And today I'm joined by Gary, Ewan Park, and Stephen Valdinger. Gary, do you want to introduce yourself first of all?
Sure. As you say, my name is Gary Ewan Park. I am a principal software engineer here at Chocolatey Software. I have been working on Chocolatey for a long time, both in an open source perspective and full-time as my day job. So yeah, excited to chat about today about all the new stuff in in technology.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. Stevie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Stephen Valdinger, the Customer Solutions Manager here at Chocolatey. I've been here almost as long as Gary. I think like a year less than Gary. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this new stream format. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's should be fun. Let's see how we go on. So I mean, we're just going to jump straight into the news. So we're going to look at some news first of all, and talk about the latest and greatest things that are happening in the world of Windows software. And one of the big things that's come up in the last week is Windows is getting a sudo command. Now, for me, when I read this, I thought, is Windows not had a sudo command for quite a while? I used gsudo for quite some time, and it worked great for me. I know there are other ones as well that are probably a little lesser well known, but there's certainly been a sudo command in Windows for some time. But Microsoft seems to be making quite a big hype about this. But they also seem to recommend you use gsudo if you want any more advanced functionality. So I'm a little bit confused by all of it. Gary, what do you make of all of this that's going on?
Yeah, I guess I'm similar to you. I mean, I've used gsudo as for a long time. So it's just a choco install gsudo away. The reason that I need it, well, you see, it depends, right? So I'm one of these rebel people who just run an elevated PowerShell prompt all the time, right? But I've been told by my peers that that's a bad idea. So I have been trying to do better. And what I'm doing now is not having an elevated PowerShell session all the time. And when I need to elevate, you need to do something to get that elevation. And sudo or gsudo for me is what was doing that. It's very similar, obviously, to what happens on Linux and Mac when you need to do things. So it makes sense for Windows to have it. I guess my immediate concern, and I feel a little bit sorry for the creator of gsudo and some of the other folks that have got similar products, that what do they do now? Because if sudo is coming out of the box, then what does that open source maintainer do with his application? So
I think
it's a difficult one.
Plug seems to be plugging the functionality that's not in sudo. As like I said, it's what I'd been reading. They recommend that, hey, if you need additional features, please go and use gsudo. So that this is what confused me a little bit. Why release a tool and then say, but we don't have all the bits, so go and use the one that you've been using for years? It makes a little confusing.
I read the comparison page that I forget the guy's name now. It's like something like Gear Dog or something like that. His handle. He's got a comparison page now between what gsudo does and what sudo does, And there's lots of things that gsudo do that sudo doesn't. But given that this is a new product from Microsoft, I can only imagine that they're going to start getting requests to say, well, gsudo does this, your one doesn't. Can't you make it do the same thing? And then it becomes a race to the bottom in terms of providing the features that people want. Yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in. I think, as you mentioned earlier when we were chatting about this, if you go and search for sudo now, you're not going. It's going to be hard to figure out whether it's sudo for Windows or whether it's sudo for Linux or whether it's just some random sudo thing. Should they not have called it? What is it you said? W sudo or something, so that there's a clear distinction between the different sudos that are out there.
It would have made it easier for people to find things. I did find a W sudo project. I think it was a PowerShell wrapper.
Okay.
But it was many years ago from it being updated, and I don't think it worked entirely well from what I'd kind of reading, but it was there. Stevie, what are you making of all of this?
I'm interested to see where they take this, but yeah, to echo you guys, I'm a little confused by why. Like, I use gsudo, or I have in the past. It's good, and to Gary's point, searching for this is going to be difficult because sudo's been around on Linux forever, and it really feels like just a glorified wrapper to UAC. So I'm failing to see the point a little bit. And I think if right now it's part of the insider's build for Windows. Eventually, it's probably going to be a feature that you can enable or disable. Are there plans to backport that to different versions of Windows? It sounds. I saw something the other day where it sounds like it's capable to run it on Windows 10. But are they going to do anything other than that? Because, Microsoft supports a whole bunch of different operating systems. Are they planning to port support for all of those operating systems so that you can use that single tool across all of those things? Is it just going to be, hey, this is going to be on Windows 11 natively? It can be put on Windows 10 with some work. Like, what are they going to do with that? So it seems like it's brand new, right? That this just happened, so they're probably still figuring out the story for it a little bit themselves as well. So I think it's going to mature, and it's very early days, but yeah, it's just interesting timing and an interesting thing for them to do overall.
It has been released into the Windows 11 Insider preview build, and I did read. It's a GitHub issue, I think. Someone's raised about Windows 10 support, so they're working on that. I also get the impression it's just one person that's doing this inside Microsoft. And it's the other surprising thing that I wanted to bring up is it's actually mostly written in Rust. That was a surprise to me. I suppose why not write it in Rust, but it was just a surprise.
I've actually heard that from some other people and places that within Microsoft they are looking to move to Rust for a lot of things moving forward, trying to get away from, I think, C++ traditionally for these sorts of things, which makes sense. I mean, the Linux kernel is moving away from C and moving into Rust as well, so it's just a natural progression of things. Rust is a new language. It's low-level stuff. It's seemingly just as powerful as C++. So, I don't know. Hone your skills and keep sharp.
Be interesting to see how that guides or moves the Rust language forward. Actually, we've got big company. I mean, I know Rust has already got a lot of input. I think it was from Google. Were involved in some bits and pieces, but it'd be interesting if more and more organizations start to pick this language up, where it will actually end up driving the language. So that's nice to see that they get that kind of attention. Okay. Yeah, I think a sort of mixed bag from us. Sudo's been around for a while. Bit strange the hype behind it, but yeah, Microsoft is a large advertising behemoth, I think is probably the best description. So they're they're going to put all of this out and create the hype round about it. But I think you need to dig through it a little bit to try and ask the question why. All right, another thing that kind of come up this week, it's not so much in the sysadmin realm, it's not a tool, but it's certainly one that a lot of us use. And Chocolatey's got a Bluesky account, so we're going to talk about Bluesky, and that's gone GA. For one, so you no longer need an invite, so you don't have to have that invite, have somebody who's on there to send you the invite to add your account. You can now just create one. But some of the information I've been looking at was a bit beyond that. They went GA and that's great. But I'd looked at a couple of things. So first of all, I looked at the protocol they're using. So they talked a lot about federation in the early days. They wanted to, have a federated system, and then people drew conclusions with Mastodon and Lemmy and those kind of federated systems. But they're not using that activity pub protocol that those systems use. They're using their own AT protocol. I don't know whether they've developed it. I didn't dig into that enough, but it's certainly one I've never heard of. So it looks like that integration with those networks is not going to happen. But something they're doing round about labeling. I don't know if you guys had seen this, where you can subscribe to labels or subscribe to organizations that will add labels. So, for example, they could have a fact-checking organization that checks facts, obviously. You might have some US presidents or UK prime ministers that are saying various different things, and these organizations can flag or label these particular tweets or what do they call them in Bluesky? They're not tweets, obviously. I can't remember.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Let's call them tweets. Let's call them tweets. So tweets for you can label those tweets and you can subscribe to them, and I found all of that very interesting. They're doing other things around about moderation as well with labeling, so that was really interesting to me. But I'll stop talking now. Stevie, what did you think of this? Are you a Bluesky user?
Yeah, I'm not. Like I still have a Twitter X account that I barely hardly ever use anymore. I don't know. My usage of social media is slowly becoming less and less as time goes on. I'll probably check out Bluesky at some point, but I'm kind of waiting to see where the majority of the tech folks land. Like a lot of people migrated over to Mastodon from Twitter, but then it kind of it was too hard to find the people that I cared about over there because it was so disjointed and split. So I'm going to keep an eye on Bluesky and see if a community forms over there that makes sense that I want to follow, and then I'll probably bite the bullet. But I really like the new labels thing inside of Bluesky. I think that's an interesting concept. I'm wondering if it would be a little bit similar to hashtags on Twitter, to where we get something like a TweetDeck alternative for it, and you could subscribe to labels inside of there and then have different columns and feeds for those particular labels. So I think that might be a better way to consume content on that platform. So I'm excited to see where they take that.
I think the label, the impression I get anyway, the labeling is different from the hashtag. So you could still follow a hashtag and have, as you said, those columns and TweetDeck.
Yeah.
I'd really liked TweetDeck when that went away. That was kind of the end of it for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I found it very difficult to use Twitter then. So I haven't been on Twitter for quite some time. But so I think the labeling is different from that. The labeling is really, you can subscribe to organizations that do labeling. You need to read through it a bit more, but I think it's an addition, not an instead of for hashtags. So they would still exist. Gary, I know that you have a Bluesky account. Is it something that you because you actually sent me an invite, so that's how I know. Do you use your Bluesky account?
So I am one of these people who needs a strong word, prefers to have the same username across different sites and things like that. So I find I need to go and grab my handle on all of the new things. So when Bluesky came along, I went and enrolled so I could get 13. When Mastodon came around, I made sure to register my own domain, etc. So it's me. So I do have it. I do use it. But what I did recently, I'm getting back into the big wide world recently after the whole COVID things. So I've been to 2 conferences recently, and while I was there, I tried to gauge interaction. So when I was posting something, I posted it to all of the social medias to then get a feel for, well, which one am I still getting feedback on or people interacting with me. Um, Not a lot of people interacted on Bluesky. Now that could be because I haven't made a concerted effort and I haven't followed the same people as I followed before. But I found that I was getting um, more traction on LinkedIn of all places. I know Ryan just mentioned that in the chat. I'm hardly ever on LinkedIn, right? I don't use it. I'm not one of these people who follows people and stalks people and speaks to people on LinkedIn. But the things that I was posting, I got quite a lot of traction with on LinkedIn, which surprised me actually. So, am I fussed about this news? Not overly. Is it good that they're making moves to becoming GA and you don't have to have a visitor, not a visitor, an invite code? Yes, that's obviously good. Am I going to keep using it? Probably. But like Stevie, I'm kind of waiting to see where I land in terms of where I get the most interactions, who I'm happiest talking to, etc. I have all the apps on my phone and stuff, so I can use them. I just have to. It's a conscious decision to go in some of these other ones because I've been so used to using the likes of Twitter, Stroke X. So
I kind of go back. Sorry, Stevie mentioned about Mastodon and how it's much more sort of segmented, and it's more difficult to find people on there, and it is. And I think that's something that's come up time and time again, particularly when the first Twitter exodus happened, that people were coming on, and you've got to pick a server on Mastodon first of all, and that confused people. I I think a lot of people were confused because it wasn't Twitter. I think a lot of people need to understand the world isn't Twitter, and things work differently over there than they do over here. But that's a people thing and a human being thing. But a part of Mastodon's appeal is that I find the community there is a lot less toxic than it was on Twitter. I mean, I don't use my Twitter account anymore at all. In fact, I'm not sure I can still log in since they removed 2FA from there. I think I can't remember what they did. I think they stopped 2FA SMS or something. Anyway, I can't log in. So I went on to Mastodon. I also left Reddit. I don't know if you guys still use Reddit. I know we're not really talking about that, but I moved away from that as well, and I'm now on Lemmy, which is a kind of Reddit equivalent. It's not quite as big, but again, I find that community less toxic. I find they're much more welcoming. So it's I find these communities are nicer to deal with. I feel that because they are less toxic, I want to interact a little bit more. And I think maybe, Gary, as you're talking about there with Bluesky, you don't do a lot of interaction. Maybe when you do, you'll find that community is different very much than Twitter. I think Twitter has changed an awful lot. It's not a place I really would like to be back to using again.
So just to pick up on something that was said in the chat, there's a deck.blue, which is a TweetDeck equivalent for Bluesky, and I've just opened it, and it looks pretty smart, to be fair. So that might encourage me to go in and have a wee sneaky peek at what that is. It looks very nice. Yeah, I'll give that a try. Thank you for that. That was Corey, I think. So
I think I think it was Josh that mentioned it, and Corey put the link into to the chat. For anybody that's listening that's not seeing the chat, it's just deck.blue, DECK.blue. Simple as that. Go and have a look at it for on there. Okay, so we're coming. We're just over halfway. This is a much. If you've joined our other live streams, you'll know they're about an hour long. This is a much smaller, not much smaller. It's half the time. It's only 30 minutes we're going to dedicate to this. So I want to pick up on something that will probably be of interest to anybody who's ever built a system, ever, and that's nginx. Hopefully everybody's heard of nginx, but it's forking. So one of the maintainers is not happy with the company who's behind nginx. I think they own the branding for it. the IP for it, and that's F5. They do a lot of load balancers and a lot of networking kit. And one of the maintainers claims that they've decided to interfere with security policies that nginx has used for years, ignoring both the policy and the developer's position. And the maintainer says they no longer see nginx as a free and open source project developed and maintained for the public good. Now, I didn't put the maintainer's name down, but I think is it Max?
Is it not Max? Max, I think it
Maxim.
was.
Yeah, Max
there's
something. Yeah.
there's three main developers. I believe is it Maxim, Sergey, and I've forgotten the other person's name.
Roman.
Roman, that's the one, yeah. So Maxim has decided to create free nginx, which is just freenginx.org, and they've fought that project. That for me is a big thing. I don't know if the fork is a big thing, but this is a huge project. This is used all over the world, and as somebody pointed out, it's the same as who is it that's there's another one of those things. There's an XKCD comic where the kind of world is teetering on this little tiny thing, and it's maintained by one person. I think it's sudo, not sudo on Linux, is one person as well. He's maintained it for like 40 years or something silly like that.
Yeah,
We got like the curl project as well. I mean, there's the one guy,
Curl,
Daniel. Yes, there are lots of people who contribute to it, but he is the core maintainer of that project.
Yeah, so you've got the world sort of teetering on a half dozen people building all this, maintaining all this software that all this infrastructure relies on. But that's part of open source, that you can fork it and take it and do what you want with it. Whether anybody follows, and starts using free nginx rather than nginx, remains to be seen. But what do you? I mean, Gary, you're heavily involved in other open source projects. That's something that you've been doing for a while. What do you make of this?
So this is a difficult one for me, because I completely understand the thought process behind wanting to fork it and not agreeing with the stance of the current owners of the project and wanting to do something different. The problem that I have with that, though, in principle, is the dilution of the ecosystem. So yes, there is the original project's still there. People can maintain it, but you've got this other one over here, and then it becomes, well, which one do you use? Is it you carry on using this one? You carry on using this one? You've then got split time. You've got people working on the same thing in two different places. So from that point of view, I find it, I don't like it. I've gone through this with the likes of the Kate Contrib project that I'm a founder of, if you like, someone who helps out with it. We work very hard to try and prevent duplication of effort. So in all of that ecosystem, we try and bring package maintainers or add-in maintainers together into one place to work on things together, as opposed to someone doing something over here and then duplicating the effort and creating something that's the same but slightly different. So I fear for the likes of this in terms of longevity of both of them at that point. I mean, to me, it's better to figure things out and agree on how you want to move forward, as opposed to going off in different directions and doing the same thing but different. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But from my point of view, I would personally prefer to figure things out and come to some sort of compromise to continue effort on a single piece of kit, a piece of work, piece of software. But
yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, best of luck. We've kind of talked about maybe we shouldn't duplicate an effort, but that's what the maintainer has decided they want to do. So best of luck on that.
Yeah.
I hope it goes well. So we're going to move on to a little bit of security news. The last 5-6 minutes today, and Ivanti are not having a good time of it. There seems to be a number of CVEs. There seems to be a number of critical bugs. There seems to be a number of this and a number of that. That are going on. But they've just there's 4 CVs currently affecting Connect Secure and the Policy Secure VPN products. I read a little bit about how these were discovered. There was a company called I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Volexity, who found out about a Chinese APT hacking group that built an exploit to break into US organizations. They'd spotted that this was going on, and I believe they reported that to Ivanti, and they've patched that. But they'd already just patched some bugs the same day that they'd reported that they've now got 4 CVEs. So they're not having a good time. Stevie, what do you make of all of this that's going on with Ivanti at the moment?
Well, I can tell you that a lot of people are not very happy with Ivanti over their handling of the response that they've given. Um, they sat on things for a while. They finally released patches, but it took them a really long time to disclose this and get a patch out. And all the while, like, these were actively exploited things. Like, this affected people. And it took them a long time to let those customers know that, hey, um, you're compromised and there's all this stuff going on. So, um, I know you mentioned, Paul, that you're not on Reddit very much, but the sysadmin subreddit has been pretty interesting of late. Since the news of this has dropped, there's been a lot of threads and a lot of conversations about people, throwing Ivanti under the bus about their response and, hey, what what else is out there that we could migrate to, that a different company that maybe has a little stronger security stance or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think Ivanti dropped the ball on this pretty hard in my opinion. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see and watch, see what companies and customers of theirs do, and we'll see if this also, makes them change their behavior a little bit in the future and be a little bit more conscious about how they notify customers and how they disclose this stuff publicly,
Yeah.
because it's a big deal, right? It's important stuff.
But that is a good point as well that you make, Stevie. It's not just about how they address these particular CVEs or the bugs or whatever. It's about if you've got an organization that is marketing security products, how they deal with vulnerabilities in that. And let's be fair, all software is not perfect, but it's how they deal with those vulnerabilities. But if they don't deal with them well, that affects all of their other products because people start to lose faith and they lose trust in what
Yeah.
they're saying and how they're dealing with it. I've always said that you can see how good a company is, but how how well they react in a bad situation. It's then really it's a true test of an organization, and it sounds like in this case that they've dropped the ball on this. I'm not sure. I don't really know of a history of Avantis. I don't know whether this is a common pattern, whether they never handle it or not, or whether this is just one thing that they've dropped. But yeah, it seems to be that it's going to affect all of their other products and their offerings as well, and that's disappointing. But okay, so hopefully Ivanti get that sorted. As I said, they've recently released fixes, and they're now looking at fixes for the new ones as well. We've also got Patch Tuesday. Patch Tuesday was just 2 days ago on the 13th, and Microsoft rolled out 72 patches, for 72 security vulnerabilities. Adobe documented more than 13 security defects in their products, including Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Reader. And Zoom patched 7 vulnerabilities as well, including a CVE that allows escalation of privilege. So there was many things that came out of that. Oracle uses Patch Tuesday as well to release patches. But I wanted to kind of highlight on those two or those three there really. Microsoft traditionally always rolled out a lot on Patch Tuesday, but that seems quite a lot that's going on there. But the good thing for if you're a Chocolatey customer or a Chocolatey user is that Adobe and Acrobat and Adobe Reader is actually in the Chocolatey community repository. And that was approved on the 13th of February. So that latest version is already available. If you're a Chocolatey user, you've probably already deployed it and you're patched. Zoom is the same. There was a release on the 31st of January, but it's the latest version that Zoom has available. So looking at this, the version that's actually available in the Chocolatey community repository is one that is not affected by the vulnerabilities there as well. So, and if you are a Chocolatey for Business customer and you use Chocolatey Central Management, you'd be able to patch this software very quickly. Roll that out through a deployment or a deployment plan, so a deployment step. Stevie, you've kind of talked about this before in previous webinars and live streams and various other places. I mean, how straightforward is it to be able to do stuff like this?
Well, if you're on the latest and greatest 0.12.0 version of Chocolatey Central Management, this is actually incredibly easy. If you've automated the the internalization process of those packages, and Zoom is one of those packages that you care about. As soon as your automation publishes that new version and your endpoints check in to central management and they start to report that that Zoom package is out of date, you can simply go to the software tab inside of Chocolatey Central Management, find that Zoom client, click the actions button, and create an upgrade deployment plan right from there, and it will automatically pull in all of the affected machines that have that outdated version installed, and then that'll allow you to either kick that deployment off immediately or schedule it to run, during a maintenance window, maybe overnight, if you want to do that. So doing something like patching something that's got a CVE with central management, it becomes, a 2-minute thing. Um, if you've got all the automation and our best practices and recommendations in place, it's very, very simple to get this stuff up and patched in your environments.
Awesome. So yeah, you don't have to suffer when this software is released. You can use Chocolatey Central Management to deploy those updates to your environment. Want to just touch on events before we close, because one of the important things that we do at Chocolate is we go to a lot of events during the year, and we meet customers, we meet users, we meet anybody that's interested in talking about software, software deployment, software lifecycle management, or PowerShell, and we like to tell people where we're going to be. So this year, this year we're going to two events. We're going to PowerShell Global Summit at two events at the moment. Will be announced more as we go forward, but we're going to PowerShell Global Summit, and that's in April the 8th to the 11th in Bellevue in Washington. And we're also going to be at PowerShell Conference Europe, and that's June the 24th to 27th in Antwerp in Belgium. Both we're going to have a booth at both of those, so please stop by, meet the team. Myself and Steve are going to be at PowerShell Global Summit. We haven't finalised who's going to be at PowerShell Conference Europe as of yet, but yeah, please stop by. We're giving away some interesting bits and pieces. We won't say any more on that. We're going to be giving away some interesting stuff, so hopefully, we can talk about that in a kind of a future stream, Stevie, because I know we want to talk about sessions that we want to see and talk about some of the attendees as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also two KubeCon events. These are Cloud Native Computing's flagship conferences. There's one in Europe and there's one in North America. The one in Europe is just next month, March 19th to 22nd in Paris in France. Chocolate is not going to be either one of these, but the one in North America is on the 12th to the 15th of November in Salt Lake City in Utah. So if that's something that interests you, please go to the KubeCon website. Just do the usual internet search for KubeCon and you'll find the European one and the North American one there. And there's also Red Hat Summit coming up in May the 6th to the 9th, and that's in Denver in Colorado. And that's all things Red Hat, OpenShift, Ansible, all those bits and pieces. So if you're in the DevOps space or you're using configuration management tools, that's probably one that's going to be of interest to you there. Okay, so we've covered all of that. Anything today that you want to add a little bit to before we finish, Stephen or Gary?
I don't think so.
No?
Don't think so.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you to both of you for coming on today. And we want to make sure that you who's watching us and listening to us today, we want to make sure we hear from you about the content that we're producing. Is it what you want to see? Did you enjoy today's live stream? Did you think maybe we should have talked about something else? Did you think you've got ideas for future live streams? So have your say at ch0.co/survey. I'm just going to, for people who are watching this back, I'm going to pop that onto the screen. There it's there. And if you are listening to us and you're not watching us, then you'll find the details of that on wherever you found this content. You'll find the details of that survey on there. If you also want to be notified of all of our upcoming Chocolatey content, join our community hub on Discord. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Bluesky, and Twitch. As I mentioned earlier, we're on all the things. And you can find all of those links on our homepage, chocolatey.org. Just scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see that there. Or wherever you find this content, there'll be details of all of those things on our profile page for that. Join our next live stream on Twitch or YouTube on Thursday the 7th of March, where we'll actually be going back to basics. We'll be looking at showing you how easy it is to create a chocolatey package, and Stephen's going to be part of that, and also Josh King. So please join that if you've ever wondered about how do I actually create a chocolatey package. How difficult is it? Well, come along and we'll show you how easy it actually is to do that. Also, look out for a product spotlight video and blog post coming on the 1st of March. That will be around the Chocolatey Community Repository. So, again, if you've ever wondered, what is the Chocolatey Community Repository? What happens when I submit a package? All of that kind of workings of that, what's the package validator, package verifier, etc., then please look out for that blog post and that video coming along. You can actually subscribe to a blog post RSS feed on blog.chocolatey.org so you can see when they're coming out. And you can join us on any of the socials that I mentioned previously to be notified. So thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And thank you to both Gary and Stephen, and we'll hopefully see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.